Is Hitchcock your favourite director?
I wouldn't say he's my favourite director. I think perhaps John Ford is my favourite director.
Okay.
But Hitchcock is certainly very, very special. Not necessarily the best, but in some ways the absolute representative of cinema.
What prompted your academic interest in Hitchcock?
Well, starting off non-academic, because I go back such a long way, that there wasn't such a thing as academic film studies, but there were still people starting to get seriously interested in Hitchcock, not just kind of for a nice night out, but taking him seriously. Do you know Robin Wood's book? It's the founding book of academic Hitchcock studies, 1965, and the very first sentence is, why should we take Hitchcock seriously? Because it was quite a bold thing to do, to take Hitchcock seriously, and there were no academic courses to speak of. There was a little bit of work in teacher training, because it was a sort of good idea for people to go into schools and engage pupils' interest in their interest in cinema, and it could lead to other things. But I suppose when I got into, when there was such a thing as academic film study and I got into it, Hitchcock was already installed as one of the people you could study, and of course people respond to him, so it was, his films are a very good topic.
How do you think he would view modern filmmakers such as Paul Greengrass, Christopher Nolan and David Fincher?
I think Hitchcock was always interested in what other people did. On the one hand, he was very interested. He watched a lot of films, and he got technical details from them, and he found actors in other films he wanted to use. But he never expressed much admiration for people who weren't a lot older than him, if they were predecessors and they weren't rivals to him, or up-and-coming people who might sort of threaten him. He wasn't very generous about other people, so I suspect he would have watched Paul Greengrass's films and been very interested in their rate of cutting and so on, maybe picked up a few things from them, but he wouldn't have said anything very generous about him.
Okay. Would you describe Hitchcock as the most influential director of all time, more so than maybe D.W. Griffith?
I think so, yes. Because sadly D.W. Griffith is semi-forgotten now. He shouldn't be, but he stopped making films in 1930, and he was a big influence on Hitchcock. And of course he wasn't a rival to Hitchcock, because he more or less finished when Hitchcock started. And I think probably Hitchcock is the most influential director. You'd hardly find a filmmaker who doesn't admit to having been influenced by Hitchcock. I'm not sure Ken Loach would admit it, but most other directors.
We're about to see Blackmail today. Is that your favourite Hitchcock movie, would you say?
No, it isn't. I think my favourite at the moment, it's one of those things that the last one you see often is your favourite, and you change around. But I think I tend slightly perversely to say The Lady Vanishes, one of his last British films. Partly because it's a British film, it's always good to be reminded, as with Blackmail, how important Hitchcock's foundational years were in British cinema, and what good films he made. And I think The Lady Vanishes is just about a perfect film, in the way that North by Northwest is a perfect film. They're not necessarily the best, because Vertigo, for instance, Psycho is more profound, but they have flaws that you wish were slightly different. But with North by Northwest and Lady Vanishes, I don't think there's anything you could want different, nothing I want different.
Today, film studies, a lot of people study it. What's the significance of film studies in contemporary society?
Maybe it's overdone now, I don't know.
Okay.
But I always feel it's rather like what happened with studying English literature. A century ago, there was very little academic study of English literature on the grounds that, we're English, we read, so get on with reading your own language and study other languages or study sciences. And it was seen as a kind of soft option. And now, of course, it's absolutely accepted. It's humanities. It's a way of studying history and society. And likewise, cinema, which was seen as as a soft option for studying. You know, why are people studying films? That's something you switch on the television, you go to the cinema for a night out. But of course they are a wonderful way of particularly studying history and studying society and studying the gender issues and all kinds of psychological themes and historical and social themes are worked out in cinema, and if you can have good teaching of cinema, they can help people to understand the world around them and how it got the way that it is.
That's all the questions I have.
Interesting.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks for coming.